Welcome to the Busy Woman's Guide to a Healthy Heart with Eliz Greene. Today's topic, stress management tips for women. This week's guests, shin kicking life spark, Bernie Shung, and adversity expert and self-esteem coach, Wendy Narup. An amazing woman with an incredible story. 13 years ago, Eliz Greene was 7 months pregnant with twins when she suffered a massive heart attack. She survived a 10-minute cardiac arrest, the cesarean delivery of her daughters, and open heart surgery all on the same day. Eliz gained a new perspective and passion for life, developing down-to-earth strategies for managing stress with a heart-healthy lifestyle.
Right. What is that skinny chick going to tell me about my life? And perhaps you didn't use the word chick.
Incredible mom, successful author, award-winning motivational speaker, and world-renowned heart disease expert, Eliz Greene.
Good job.
Welcome. We know you're busy, so we're delighted you're taking the time to be with us today. As women, we're often good at making sure everyone else gets what they need, but then we don't find the time to take care of ourselves. That's the concept of the Busy Woman's Guide, finding ways to fit healthy habits into your already busy day. Today, we're talking about stress. Stress, of course, is no stranger to the busy woman. And one of my favorite strategies to manage stress is to hang out with other great women. Studies show that women who maintain positive relationships with other women are 30% less likely to develop heart disease. That means having a cup of coffee with a couple of friends is a wonderful way to reduce your stress. Which is why I invited two great women to join us today at the table. They're both busy women who know something about managing stress. Our first guest is Bergeron. Bernie, I met you as a guest on your show, The Shut Up Show. You're known as the shin-kicking life spark, and I'm delighted that you're here to join us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And our second guest is Wendy Narup. I've known Wendy for years and been inspired by Wendy for years, so I'm delighted that you're here to join us. Thank you, Wendy.
Yeah, thanks. I'm excited to be here.
So the problem with stress is that when we're stressed, our bodies naturally produce a hormone called cortisol. And that hormone's there for a good reason. It allows us to react to a crisis, to be faster, to be stronger. And that's a good thing. The problem is that our cortisol level is supposed to come down when our stress level goes down. But when we live our lives at this high stress level all of the time, that never gets a chance to come down. And eventually, that hormone causes problems in our body. It can attack our heart, it does all kinds of things, and eventually it can lead to a health crisis. Now, Bernie, you know something about living through a health crisis.
Absolutely. You talked about kind of the highs and the lows, and believe me, I've experienced that so much. And a time I can remember was back in October of 2008. I had just quit my corporate job, this life that I had been chasing, you know, getting that corporate sales position, the penthouse apartment, all these shiny objects, and all the nice things that said, this is reaching success. And I gave it all away because I was married to my job and didn't have time to do things that were, fulfilling to me. Right. And within a month of quitting that job, I was running on adrenaline, and I built an online business and coaching overnight, basically, within 3 days. And then all of a sudden, boom, I found myself completely sick, a lot of pain. I couldn't understand where it was coming from. And I ended up making a hard decision to call the ambulance and get rushed to the hospital. I had no insurance.
Oh.
So while I was in the hospital, they were diagnosing me for 7 days straight. They didn't let me eat. I couldn't even suck on ice chips, so I was basically starving other than having the IV in me. And on day 7, they discharged me from the hospital, no diagnosis, a $40,000 bill, and a parasite that ended up being in my colon for being in the hospital for a whole week.
Oh, yeah.
So you can imagine what I was going through in my mind. You know, if my thoughts could talk at the time, they were saying, like, how are you going to pay for this bill? Right. You failed. You suck. How are you ever going to come back from this? What a bad decision you made. And so I found myself really, really stressed out completely. And in hindsight, actually, I think stress is what put me in the hospital to begin with. And the great thing is, in the coaching training that I did prior to that, I learned mindset strategies on how to just get yourself through things like that, how to get yourself to the next day. And so that is really what pulled me out of that most stressful time in my life.
Is really changing what was going on in your head.
Up here.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
But you felt there were times where you just didn't feel like you could continue.
Oh, I there were times when I thought, you know what, this is so overwhelming to me. What if I just let myself whittle away to nothing, and my son could collect the life insurance policy, right? I mean, there were things that were happening like that, but you know, to your point, I had to use the strategies to say, let's talk about something more positive. How can we just get through to the next day? Because thinking like this, talking like this to yourself is not going to help at all.
Absolutely right. And you know something about taking a journey from rape survivor to Ironman finisher. That's quite the journey. Tell us a little bit about how that goes.
And it kind of piggybacks on what you were talking about, Bernie, because there's this sort of overwhelming sense of not being able to handle things in life that happens to a lot of women.
Sure.
That's that sort of feeling of hopelessness, like you're climbing some kind of mountain and yours is steeper and higher than anybody else's.
That's right.
And I felt like that because of I was knocked out and raped and came to in the middle of it as a 15-year-old. That was a horrible day, a horrible experience. And as a kid, I was confused and ashamed and scared, and I didn't want to be judged, and I didn't want people talking about me, and I didn't want the way my dad looked at me to change.
Right.
So I hid it. I didn't want anybody to know. And to cope, I tried to be perfect. I tried to please everybody, because if you were happy with me, it sort of made me feel better. If you were happy with me, right? And they say you can't please all the people all the time, but boy, you can try. But trying to do that makes you feel like you're never enough.
Right.
And it just adds an incredible amount of stress to your life.
Well, and I think that's something as women that we sort of do to ourselves, where we try to do everything for everybody else, thinking that that's going to make us feel good, and then we feel selfish about taking the time to take care of ourselves. And we really are surrounded by this culture that sort of encourages us not to take care of ourselves, not to put that priority.
Yeah. And when you think about today, the technology generation, with all of our gadgets and all the time we spend in front of those gadgets, we are bombarded by messages constantly telling us how to look, how to act, how to think, how to feel, what to eat. When you go in the grocery store, you guys, there are lanes of processed foods, lanes of chips.
Right.
And you know, the quality of what goes in the tank really determines the quality of what comes out the other end, right? It's either fluffy floaters or stinky sinkers, and you got to take a look,
Right.
Because there's too many people sitting on the toilet, and it's funny, but it's not funny. We're sitting there, we're going,
and distracting ourselves by tweeting.
Yes, we're tweeting. We're not tweeting about it, but the proof is in the pudding. And it shouldn't look like pudding. It should look like a masterpiece. It should be this S-shaped thing that you can be proud of, and unfortunately, our culture doesn't encourage that.
Because if we're not putting the right food
stress.
then our body doesn't work right. And when
Yeah.
our body doesn't work right, we don't feel right, we get
Yeah.
sick, it adds to the stress, and it's really this cycle that just really doesn't work. And, you know, I think one of the things that really binds the three
Binds us?
one of the things that really binds us together, so to speak, is that we've all chosen to use our stories to work with other women, to sort of point out the things that we've learned along the way. Hopefully people don't have to have the health crisis or the major thing in their life to make them, you know, wake up and pay attention. But sharing our stories and making a difference and really helping other women. And all of us work with busy women all over the country to improve their health and to focus on their goals and to manage stress. Let's take a look at what a few of those women had to say about their own journeys to become healthier, more productive, and less stressed.
What I can tell you about Eliz Greene is she has one of the most inspiring stories of any woman that I've ever met in my entire life. I first met her about 6 years ago, and at the time I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and really at that point in my life where I was ingrained in my career. I was super busy, working 40 plus hours a week and not taking time for myself. And when I heard her story, her very inspiring story, I decided that it was time that I needed to start making some changes in my own life.
Bernie, I met originally just being out in Milwaukee and networking, and learned about her quickly just through her friends, about how she's instrumental in helping people take the next step in their lives.
Wendy is a wonderful person. I met her at a spin class actually about 10 years ago, and she was up there just spinning away, and I had dared myself to walk into a spin class. I had just had a baby, I had 2 kids, and I just said to myself, you know, you can do it. And there were about 5 days in a row I walked past the spin class and saw Wendy in there and fit and strong with this big smile on her face, and I thought, man, can I go in there? I'm 100 pounds overweight.
Eliz has helped me manage stress in my own life through her very open way of sharing her own personal story and how she has taken that experience and really made changes throughout her life going forward. And by hearing that story, I was able to take out bits and pieces of that and incorporate it into my own life, such as getting more sleep, exercising more regularly, eating healthier, and ultimately losing weight and becoming a runner.
The health benefits that I received from working with Bernie had to do with sleep. Stress levels were causing me to wake up a lot during the night, not sleep soundly, have a hard time falling asleep. So when I was able to prioritize, I was able to sleep better, which then gave me more energy throughout the day.
Challenging yourself in such a large way, doing an Ironman or a Bergeron or something like that, when you accomplish that and you feel so good about yourself and you feel part of a community that is also doing that, there's a stress level that is so much lower than your daily life of laundry and kids and dogs eating hairbrushes and all that kind of thing, that, you know, I think it just brings you back every day to this lower level of stress.
Put yourself first. That's the best advice I can give is, you know, when you look at your schedule for the day and you see that it's jam-packed, try to find a way to fit in 30 minutes for yourself. Whether that's going for a run or doing yoga or cooking a healthy meal, I think putting yourself first is really the best advice any woman can give to each other.
Words of encouragement that I would give to other women is that it's hard to take care of everything else in your life if you haven't taken care of yourself. So making sure that your energy levels are good, you're healthy, gives you the ability to do all the other things that you need to do. And I think that women tend to take care of everyone else before they take care of themselves. And that's a mistake that we need to correct.
And you have to surround yourself with the people that can encourage you to do that and can give you the tools to do that. Having good people in your life is a really great way to keep your life stress-free, and then also to help you to just reach all of your goals. And that's really what Wendy is for me, is that check-in, that can I do this? Yes, you can do it, but here's how you have to do it. So I love that about her. It's great.
Eliz's approach to connecting with other women is really lighthearted and fun. She keeps it real. She is a real woman. She shares real life experiences and issues that she faces in her own day-to-day life. And I think as a woman, that's something that we really look for, is who can I relate to and who can I pull from their experiences and bring them into my own life. And that's what I love about her, is she's funny, she's witty, she will share experiences that make you laugh and make you say, wow, that happened to me yesterday. And she found a way to overcome it, and she found a way to be a better person and create a healthy lifestyle for herself, and I can do that too. So thank you, Eliz. We appreciate that.
I love what Mary has to say about doing the Bergeron, which is a long-distance cross-country ski race.
Yeah, really tough.
It is, and I think it's another thing that binds us together again. that idea of a physical challenge to create change inside. And I know, Bernie, you became a runner. I did sprint distance triathlons, and Wendy, you did the granddaddy of all physical challenges, the Ironman triathlon. You want to share, for those of us who might not be familiar with what that is, what it entails.
Yeah, you know, I did, and it wasn't even on my bucket list. It's amazing. An Ironman is a 2.4 mile swim, 112 miles of bicycling, and then 26.2 miles of running. You got to be a little nuts.
A little nuts.
A little nuts. And, you know, I was surrounded at that time by people who did these things.
Right.
So when you're in that environment, it seemed kind of normal. Looking back on it now, it seems even more than a little crazy, but it was a huge stretch. And that stretch for me and the challenge of getting there, initially I was doing it because I wanted to fit in and please other people.
Sure.
But in the process of getting fitter and taking care of me, I found my voice. I found confidence. I started to realize that I do matter, started to believe in myself, and the day of the event was such a big challenge and so difficult that crossing the finish line was really like crossing the starting line for the rest of my life. It changed me. Yeah.
And I love what you said about making it a stretch.
Yeah.
And I think...
And it doesn't have to be a big thing to be a stretch, right? Anything that makes us a little uncomfortable, that's good for us.
Absolutely right. And I know you have a wonderful story about how you started even just walking.
I actually really love Wendy's story because she was talking about creating an environment, and so what I was hearing was creating new habits, right? And I had horrible habits. I mean, I had these different vices, smoking, you know, eating at fast food restaurants because I was always on the go with my busy job, and just never making time for my exercise or good nutrition. And so when I wanted to quit smoking, I was having all these horrible upper respiratory problems. I was coughing. It was just, everything was awful. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to kick the smoking to the curb and let me replace it with something else. So in that 15-minute span I would be smoking, instead I decided to just start doing something free and easy, which was walking around the block.
How did you, I'm just blown away that you picked walking around the block instead of French fries.
Right,
you know,
right.
because French fries would have that oral sort of fixation,
Right.
and how did you do that?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And I think for me it was, I just felt physically horrible, right? If I'm replacing the cigarettes for French fries, I still had that icky feeling in my body. I was sluggish, I was tired, and my health was awful. So I said, why don't I replace it with something, like I said, it's free to go walk around the block. I don't have to pay for a gym membership to do that. And the walking turned into running, and next thing you know, I'm doing a 5K, I'm doing a 10K, I'm doing half marathons, and I'd never run before that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and that builds, and the more you do it,
right.
you start to feel better.
You do.
You start stretching a little farther. You're like, I can do this now. I'm going to reach for that. And I think the other thing that is so beautiful about taking on a challenge, especially if it's a 5K run or, you know, something crazy, it somehow gives us permission
Right.
to do that for ourselves.
Right.
And as women, we often don't give ourselves permission to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, we feel guilty.
Right, but here I'm training for this 5K, so therefore I have to take the time and I have to run and I have to eat the right things and I need to make that space in order to really do that for myself. Otherwise, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah,
That's
we sort of feel like it's honorable to give up ourselves for everybody else, and then what we're putting out there doesn't have as much value. Do you know what I mean? Because everything else exhausts us because we're not taking care of ourselves. So it's really sort of it's backwards. We have to. I think that taking care of yourself first is key.
Right, and I think especially when you have children, you think, oh, I have to do all this, all this, all this. But we forget that we're setting the role model.
Yeah.
You know, we're setting what our kids are going to grow up thinking is normal. So if we're saying normal is sitting in front of the television every night and loading up on salty snacks,
or in front of our computers, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons I love that idea of a challenge is that if we don't change something, nothing changes. We can breathe deep as much as we want. We're not going to reduce our stress level unless we change something in our own environment.
Right.
And then when we figure out what that stretch is, whether it's really I'm going to walk around the block, that really makes a difference. And I think the other problem that we, particularly as women, face is that we then beat ourselves up if we don't meet that stretch, and don't think to ourselves, okay, you know, we're gonna need to do something. That's a lot. The whole stress management thing can be a big thing to bite off, but it really is about changing small things.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
So
little pieces.
Let's talk about what's a small thing. What's one sort of mindset, small change that we could make to make a difference?
I would say it's probably you are who you hang out with. You know, this is such an easy concept when we think about our kids. We care desperately about the quality of our children's friends, right? Because we know the influence that friends can have on young minds. Well, hello, as you become as an adult, any time in your life, the people you spend the majority of your time with influence the person that you are.
Absolutely.
And friendship isn't an obligation. Friendship is a privilege. You don't have to carry these people in your lives that are bringing you down all the time. I mean, you can donate some time in that direction, but the majority of your time should be around people that are a representation of who you want to be or what you want your life to look like.
Absolutely.
And if I hadn't found those people in my life, you know, they were the catalyst that allowed me to make the changes that makes me at 50, when I finally got there, a happy person. So
That's great. That's wonderful advice.
Yeah.
All right, Bernie, what do you think?
Right. I couldn't agree with you more, Wendy. And I would say, to even add to her amazing tip, I would also say, you know, if we go back to that fall of 2008 when I was feeling awful and not sure how I'd recover that full month, I sat on the couch always, you know, constantly thinking to myself, how am I going to even make it to the next day?
Right.
This is awful. It's overwhelming stress. I turned the TV on, and instead of watching John and Kate Plus 8, which, by the way, that was what I was watching in the hospital that week, I decided to just turn the channel, and a commercial came on for Junior Achievement. And I felt like it was telling me something. It was like, you know, to volunteer, go to our website. So I decided, I've never volunteered for anything in my life, and I feel like total crap right now. Why don't I go and make a difference? And I volunteered that afternoon. And since that time, it's been a little over 5 years now, I've been involved in like 7 different nonprofit organizations. So my tip would be serve.
Yeah.
Honestly, the thing that got me to the next day was finding more meaning and purpose in my life. And if I didn't know what that was, then I found a cause that I could attach myself to, and I started serving.
I think that's so smart. And by serving, you're serving yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, you know, and there's really a critical thing there, because anything we do in life, regardless of what our job is or what our circumstances, if we make somebody else's day better, there's a sense of value in doing that. So it's really, in whatever your occupation is, it should be everybody's purpose on some level.
I was just going to say, it brings you back to your meaning and purpose if you didn't know what that was before.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a difference between serving and trying to please everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think that's probably my tip, is that as women, we need to say no more often.
Oh, yeah.
And no, and not feel bad. Yes, and not feel bad, not apologize. I like the tip that no is a complete sentence, that you don't need to apologize. If you know what's important, if you know what your priorities are, when you say no to things that do not serve
Liz,
that priority.
I still struggle with it.
Oh, well, yeah, of course, we all do. But by saying no to those things, you're really saying positively, affirmatively yes to the things that are truly important. And that's the tough thing. And one of my favorite mantras that I say many times a day sometimes is, life is not about perfection. It's about moving in the right direction. And that's really what the show is all about, is finding ways to move in the right direction. And health and wellness isn't a destination, it's a journey that we walk every day. And as long as we're on the path, we're going to be okay. And periodically we may step off the path, but we get right back on. And I hope you found things that will help you on your own path to wellness and feeling better and managing your stress. Maybe you found Wendy's tip helpful about really paying attention to those people that you're surrounding yourself with. Or you'll take a page from Bernie's book and find some ways to serve and really find your purpose and continue to serve yourself by serving others. Or perhaps you'll learn to say no a little more often and really honor those things that you really know are important by saying no and saying yes to those things that are important. As with any great meeting of wonderful women, our time has gone by far too quickly. We've had very productive conversation today with some excellent stress management tips. I'd like to thank our guest, Bernie. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your story. If people wanted to find out more about you, where would they find you?
Absolutely, and thank you again. It was such a pleasure to chat with both of you
It's
today.
great to be at a table with great women.
Absolutely. The best place to reach me right now is at my website, which is bernieshung.com.
And there we'll find out how to watch the Shut Up Show.
Oh, absolutely.
Which I know Wendy's going to be a guest in a little while, so we need to
That's
make sure
right.
you see
Every
that
Tuesday.
show. Fantastic. And Wendy, I was rereading your book this week in preparation for the show today, and I again am inspired by your story. If somebody wanted to get a copy of your book or learn more about you, where would they find you?
They can find me on my website, wendynarup.com. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you for being here. And you can find me at busywomensguide.com. There you'll find links to resources, including Bertie and Wendy's websites, in case you didn't catch them, as well as an option to comment about today's program or ask a question. Thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time, I'm Eliz Greene, wishing you low stress and great success.